Hello friends, hope you all are doing fine. Today we are going to start a new book named Light from Many Lamps. It is one of the most beautiful book, Light from Many Lamps. You will learn about this book. It is one of the favorite book of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Today we are going to start this book, and after discussing about this book, we will firstly go to a first chapter. Light from Many Lamps. The publishing of Light from Many Lamps is from 1988. This book is full of stories, beautiful stories. Part 1. Happiness, the enjoyment of living. Most folks are about as happy as they make up their mind to be. Abraham Lincoln. Down through the centuries, men have sought to explain the meaning and the art of happiness. Millions upon millions of words have been written on the subject. Poet and priest, philosopher and scientist, teacher, preachers and leaders of every age have sought to work out a simple formula for what Sir Philip Gibbs called the eternal quest of mankind, a happy and contented life. For in the end, happiness is what all people want, regardless of the many ways they may seek it. To be happy is the ultimate goal of all ambitions, all endeavor, all hopes and plans. Happiness, happiness, meaning and purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence, declared Aristotle, supreme philosopher of the ancient world. But what is happiness? Clearly, it means vastly different things to different people. Since earliest time, men have sought and found their happiness along amazingly divergent paths in work, achievement, success, in love and family ties, in the faction of friends in religion. There is one point, however, on which philosophers in every age agree. True happiness stems from a quality within ourselves, from a way of thinking of life. Of all the millions of words written on happiness, this is the oldest and most enduring truth. If the principles of contentment are not within us, no material success, no pleasure, no possession can make us happy. This philosophy has been expounded by writers and thinkers since civilization began, but never more beautifully and effectively than in Maeterlinck's famous play, The Bluebird. Tiltil and Mittel, the woodcutter's children, search far and wide for happiness, only to find it on their return home. We went so far, and it was here all the time. It is not necessary to search for happiness in far places, says Maeterlinck in The Bluebird. It is everywhere, around you and about you. The quest for happiness is always in vain unless you can find it within yourself, within your own heart and soul. Very little is needed to make a happy life, wrote Marcus Aurelius in his immortal Meditations. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking, following a selection from what leading thinkers of all age, from ancient time to the present, have said on the subject of happiness. John Burroughs. The secret of happiness is something to do. In this chapter, John Burroughs wants to tell us what is the secret of happiness. If you have something to do, then this is the most happiest thing to you. The poet stood at his window and watched a neighbor walk by. He walked not as man should enjoy and triumph, But with slow step and sagging shoulder, like a man with a great burden on his soul, John Burroughs knew why. The man had no work. He loved nothing to keep him busy and content, to give him his day's purpose and direction. An idle man is a wretched man, he thought, listening to the shrill cacophony of the words, to the soft whispering of trees. Surely no one knew better than he the blessedness of work, of life-giving and life-sustaining work. Had he not been idle himself once, and one of the most utterly dejected of God's creatures? Life had lost its savor for him, had become empty and stagnant. He couldn't eat or sleep, couldn't think or dream. Work had saved him. Good hard work on a farm, with his hands ranking and hoeing, plowing and planting, feeling the good earth between his fingers, feeling his oneness with the universe. The plough had done its perfect work on him, as on his field. The bitterness and the boredom had been blowed into the stagnant pool of discontent, drained off. The planting, pruning had shaped his life as surely as they had shaped his fruit trees. Foreseeing the river shine and dimple in the spring, watching the birds arrive and hearing the shrill, excited laughter, looking up from his work and seeing the sky and distant hills bathed in the magic of sudden beauty. He had found renewal and inspiration. He had found his life work. John Burke turned from the window, walked slowly to his desk. Wake Tobin had been the first of a series of books about birds, flower, and rural scenes that had brought him worldwide recognition. But far more important, his poems and essays on out-of-door life had brought him joy and contentment. If only he could make others realize that happiness was no elusive will-o-wisp. The real happiness was the simplest thing in the world and within reach of all people. All about him were reaching for happiness in hopeless way, or like the neighbor who had just walked by, were letting their lives empty into stagnant pools. He must try to make them realize that secret of happiness was in work, congenial work, something to do. He picked up his pen and began to write. There is a condition or circumstances that has greater bearing upon the happiness of life than any another. What is it? It is one of the simplest things in the world and within reach of all. If this secret were something I could put up at auction, what a throng of bidders I should have, and what high ones. Only the wise one can guess what it is. Some might say it is health, money, or friends, or that possession. But you may have all these things and not be happy. You may have fame and power and not be happy. I maintain there is one thing more necessary to be happy than any other. Though health and money and friends and home are all important, though all one thing is what? The sick man will say health, the poor man will say wealth, the ambitious man power, the scholar knowledge, the overworked man's rest. Without the one thing I have in mind, none of these things would long help their possessor to be happy. We could not long be happy without food or drink or clothes or shelter, but we may have all these things to perfection and still want the prime condition of happiness. It is often said that a contented mind is the first condition of happiness. But what is first condition of a contented mind? You will be disappointed when I tell you what's this all important thing. Is it so common, so near at hand, and so many people have so much of it and yet are not happy? They have too much of it, or else the kind that is not best suited to him. What is the best thing for a stream? It is to keep moving. If it stops, it stagnates. So the best thing for a man is that which keeps the current going, the physical, the moral, the intellectual current. Hence the secret of happiness is something to do, some congenial work. Take away the occupation of all men, and what a rest world it would be. Few persons realize how much of their happiness is dependent upon their work, upon the fact that they are kept busy and not left to feed upon themselves. Happiness comes most to persons who seek her least and think least about it. It is not an object to be sought, it is a state to be induced. It must follow and not lead. It must overtake you and not you overtake it. How important is health to happiness? and yet the best promoter of health is something to do. Blessed is the man who has some congenial work, some occupation in which he can put his heart and which afford a complete outlet to all the forces there are in him. It was out of the richness and fullness of his own life that John Burroughs wrote about the words. Wake Robin had awakened him to his own destiny, had shown him what he wished most to do in life. It was followed by birds and poets, locusts and wild honey, signs and seasons. The Ways of Nature book that made him the successor of Henry David Thoreau as America's most popular essayist on birds, plants and animals, like so many others who lived a good life. Burroughs felt in later years the need to share his philosophy with others, to pass on his secret of happiness, keep the current moving. Yes, don't let your life stagnate. Today he is perhaps as well as remembered for his reflection on happiness as he is for his poems and essays. The last selection here has been quoted so many times it would be impossible to calculate its influence, and influence that increased with every reprinting. The grand essential to happiness in the life are something to do, something to love, and something to hope for. Joseph Addison. Work, and thus canst not escape the reward, whether the work be fine or coarse, planting corn or writing epics, so only it be the honest work, done to thine own approbation, it shall earn a reward to senses as well as the thought. No matter how often defeated, you are bound to victory. The reward of a thing well done is to have done it. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Happiness, I have discovered, is nearly always a rebound from hard work. It is one of the follies of men to imagine that they can enjoy mere thought or emotion or sentiment as well try to eat beauty, for happiness must be tricked. She loves to see men at work. She loves sweet, weariness, self-sacrifice. She will be found not in places but lurking in cornfields and factories and hovering over littered desks. She crowns the unconscious head of his busy child. If you look up suddenly from hard work, you will see her, but if you look too long, she fades sorrowfully away. There is something fine in hard physical labor. One actually stops thinking. I often work along without any thought whatever, so far as I know, save the connected with the monotonous repetition of the labor itself. Down with the spade, out with it, up with it, over with it, and repeat. And yet, sometimes, mostly in the forenoon, when I am not at all tired, I will suddenly have a sense as of the world opening around me, a sense of its beauty, its meaning, giving me a peculiar deep happiness. There is near complete content. David Garrison. The mintage of wisdom is to know the rest is trust, and the real life is in love, laughter, and work. Albert Camus. To awaken each morning with a smile brightening my face, to greet the day with the reverence for the opportunities it contains, to approach my work with a clean mind, to hold ever before me, even in the doing of little things, the ultimate purpose towards which I am working, to meet men and women with laughter on my lips and love in heart, to be gentle, kind, courteous through all the hours, to approach the night with weariness that ever would sleep, and the joy that comes from work well done. This is how I desire to waste wisely my days. Thomas Dekker. Thank God, every morning when you get up that you have something to do which must be done, whether you like it or not. Being forced to work and forced to do your best will breed in your temperance, self-control, diligence, strength of will, content, and 100 other virtues which will be idle never know. Charles Kingsley.